because their understanding of the specialty is so broad, they don't take into account your specific situation.
And I feel like that's what people do with their illnesses as well. They're like, well, the doctor said this, so whatever, I'm not going to look into it. It's fine.
That superiority complex, we as the patients, we're not the ones with the degrees, but we're commanding these folks who sit high with the degrees. Who are we to tell these guys? And we got to get out of that.
That's the way it should be. It should be a teamwork thing. It should be collaboration. It shouldn't be just this blind faith and this. I mean, we immediately put doctors into an authoritative position.
And I don't understand why doctors always say, like, don't do any Googles. Like, why not?
I can understand why 20 plus years ago, but now there are so many resources. And you know what? The reason why I am where I am now is because of the research I have done. And I say go to Google.
I didn't have the strength that I have now. That's when you really need people.
People who could understand.
It really did make a difference.
So finding that community, finding that tribe.
Or are in that realm of chronic illness and stuff.
I barely go through it because I'd be so focused.
Never thought in a million years that would have to happen to me.
So all those emotions are valid. Every last one of them.
I was at a low point.
Just kind of removing the stigma.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Chronic Brew. We've kind of warmed ourselves up. We're gonna jump right into the podcast. JJ, thank you so much for joining me again, ladies and gentlemen. She's back.
I'm so excited and ready for this. I was born for this.
Oh man, I think this definitely was a long time coming. Especially alluding off of the last episode where you're on, where we're talking about the quote unquote the bad docs out there. And I think between the both of us, we have a wealth of experience where we've seen. Just where doctors could have done better. Now, just want to keep in mind to the listeners out there, this episode is not to the doctors who have awesome bedside manners. This is not for the doctors who have ultimate care for their patients, who strive for reaching the pinnacle of knowledge to make sure that their patients are well taken care of. This is for where we see there's lacks and different faults in the medical system, especially when it comes to care for the patients, i.e. those docs out there. So with all that being said, we're going to open up this episode with just a little venting session because we've either had friends, family members who have suffered under the hands of medical malpractice, or just doctors who didn't have the sense of care for the patients. If you could just wipe away one thing, the single most frustrating thing about going to the doctors with a chronic illness, what is that one thing that just instantly makes you feel unheard when you go to the doctors?
When you get that sense that they're, and for lack of a better term, I'm sorry, mansplaining at you.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
But when they start talking to you like you haven't been living with your own condition for X amount of years and like you don't know anything that you're talking about, even though you live in that body and experience those symptoms every day. And then they start referring back to previous diagnoses you had. That's when I start shutting down. That's when I start understanding like you're just relying on what you see on paper and you're not listening to the person that's in front of you.
Yeah. If I ever go to the doctor's office and you ask me, so what's been going on? And I immediately start telling you what's happening. And all you're doing is just, no, matter of fact, I'm going to go further. If we're having a conversation and then I look at you and I notice that you're not looking at me, you're just focused on a sheet of paper listing out my diagnosis. I know you're not listening to the person, but you're just reading all of the issues that I came with. Yes. So you're missing the bigger picture at that point. Second would come what you just said, like I'm listing it out and then you counter it with I heard what you said, but I don't think it's to that extent. And it's like, okay, well, you asked me for what I'm experiencing and all you can say is you don't think that's what it is. You're not in these shoes. If it comes to the point where we're having this dialogue and you're telling me, you're trying to give me a big lecture after I probably already came with some background knowledge. And then you try to slow me down, say, okay, you make me feel like I don't know anything, that you're the doctor in the situation. That's when I realized this is no longer going to be a partnership. It's going to be a you commanding the room and maybe for good reason, right? Doctors want to make sure everything that we're saying is ironed out with his research and all that stuff. But then if I come with certain information, I think it's in the best interest to listen all the way through, and compare what I'm saying just to make sure that we're both on the same page. But when you come domineering and trying to shut me down, like literally trying to shut me down, that's when I'm just going to be like, you know what? I don't think this is a spot for me.
Yeah, no. And I mean, it's just, it comes with that compassion. Like I said before, you can have the most knowledgeable doctor, but if they're not compassionate or curious about what's going on with you, it doesn't matter. I mean, I have, as you know, this past year became disabled literally overnight. And my doctor just completely dismissed me because according to my records and what she was seeing for my blood work, well, I was fine, but I'm not fine. I have 2 more diagnoses since then, you know? And so she just didn't have the compassion. She didn't care. And that's not something you can teach.
Yeah.
You know, underneath that white jacket is a person, and some people are jerks. So that means some doctors are jerks, and you need to be okay with that. You need to understand, yep, maybe she became a doctor because her dad pushed her to do it and she didn't really want to. Or, yep, maybe she's stuck in this because, you know, she has debt to pay off and she doesn't know what else to do and she's sick of it and burnt out. And that is reality, and we need to be on board with that reality and see that it's just a person, and you need to find the right person who's going to see you and treat you properly.
That is true. Always remembering that these doctors, they also need to go to doctors themselves. They need to get their own care as well. So they might actually be going. You know, we don't know, but I think in regards to us, we're the only pilots in our seat that experience some of these things, and so it's always good for the doctor to just take their time. At least for me, I think it's always good for the doctors to just take their time. And to just make sure that everything that I'm experiencing lines up with the conditions that's on paper. Now, feeling dismissed, or even when we're trying to explain and it becomes almost back and forth ish, it's kind of like, you know, we're being a difficult patient. Describe the moment where you felt dismissed. If you could think back to your
Oh my gosh, I have so many scenarios, but I mean, the biggest one that occurs over and over is doctor asked me a question. I'm in the middle of talking about my symptoms and they just go, and then they cut in with the next question. They listen to barely half the sentence and then they're moving on to the next question that's on their Rolodex. They don't even care about what I'm answering. They hear yes or no. And then I'm like, but also it happens when la, 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 or after I eat, blah, blah, blah. And they're just like, yep, okay, whatever. And the next question is like, that drives me bananas because I'm trying to put pieces together. I'm trying to show evidence, like something is linking here. I'm curious about this. And you are not showing any curiosity with me. And I'm relying on you to give me information that I might not have yet. And you're not supporting me.
I hope whoever's listening, you know, doesn't try to connect the dots. But I recently went to go get some labs done. And what ended up happening was I was talking about my CKD condition and what I'm finding out. And you know, I honestly, without me being on dialysis, I've put on a significant amount of weight. And there's a couple of things that contribute to that we're trying to iron out and try to fine tune exactly what's causing it. But when I tried to explain, you know, what's going on with, you know, with my condition, my chronic illness, the doctor said something, and maybe he was just saying it out of the spur of the moment. He said, well, you know, you don't have true CKD. He said, what, you know, in a sense of like what CKD is. CKD is when you get older and your kidneys decline naturally, da 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 da. But because you have the numbers, your creatinine and your GFR is there, you kind of qualify for CKD, but you don't have true CKD.
Here's another wild thing that happens a lot now is a lot of women are experiencing perimenopause. That means going into menopause earlier than you should. These women are going to the doctors concerned about it, and they're literally saying, you're too young for it. Hello. Perimenopause literally means you are doing it too early. So like these doctors are just dismissing it because, well, textbook, you should be between 45 and this and you're not. So it can't be. That's absurd.
Oh my gosh.
That's absurd.
Gosh. Sorry to the women out there who have to go through that. You
honestly.
know. And I even think the whole experience at times, at the primary care level can be kind of shorthanded in a sense. And that brings us right to our first segment. Why everything feels rushed all the time. You know, like I wonder sometimes I wonder, like, is it the system that causes that to where
It
we
is
don't, you
partially.
know, because I think the best thing that we should want to do is build a relationship with our doctors and not have it feel like we're a number on a conveyor belt. We filled rush, that 15 minutes. It's sometimes it's 10 minutes. Question: do you think that crazy time limit is really the doctor's fault though, or do you, like you said, the insurance company is forcing them to treat us like a factory assembly line?
Yeah, I don't think it's the doctor's fault. I really want to believe that a good majority of doctors go into the field feeling passionate and then eventually they get burnt out because, so I used to be a client care coordinator at a physical therapy clinic. So we dealt with insurance and all that stuff. And I tell you what, insurance is tricky and it is really miserable to deal with. And doctors do have to meet certain numbers because, with insurance, you're only getting a certain percentage back from those appointments. And if someone doesn't make an appointment, you're doing everything you can to scramble in someone else because you can't miss your quota and this, that, the other thing. So like, yes, insurance 100% messes this up for doctors, and doctors get burnt out by this. And then they have to meet certain diagnoses in the computer. They got to get out their notes in a certain time. Like, it's stressful. It is stressful. And so the system breaks you. This is kind of what I experienced when I was a social worker. I
Okay.
kept hitting dead end after dead end with this family clearly needs resources, but oh my gosh, there is nowhere to turn. And I have to turn to them and say, I'm sorry, I've done everything I could. Like, that burns you out. So as a doctor, having all these tight time crunches and trying to get your notes out and making sure you're tending to your patients 100%, yeah, that's hard. It's hard. I will give them a break there. Insurance messes that up for doctors 100%.
I hate to admit it, but even in that regard, with these insurance companies, you got to do better for the patients, because if it's your job to make sure that the patient that's under your insurance is getting the care that they need, you might want to make sure that the doctor on the other end is being satisfied with the patient care that they're giving, because that burnout will happen. Doctors will be frustrated, and I can see where they might feel like they got to rush through this to get to the next patient, off the sense of giving proper care based on what the insurance is given. But then also that almost strokes a very thin line between that malpractice piece, regardless of what the insurance is doing. But I think a lot of times too, the insurance needs to step up and be the advocate for the patient as well, making sure the doctor is properly taken care of for the care that they're given.
Most of the time, the doctor has to advocate for the patient to insurance to get coverage.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. That is true. When it's to get let's say an MRI referral, got to call the insurance and this back and forth. Like I've heard situations where that's the thing, where the insurance said they didn't want to cover, but then the doctor had to step and say, "Hey, this is medical. We have to do so." So yeah, the insurance. Okay.
We've got some feelings.
Yeah. Another thing too, like let's say if it's not even just the PCP, let's say it's all the specialists that we go to, whether it's for the heart, stomach, brain, they're all giving us different advice.
And they don't communicate with each other.
Yeah, that little
is something
web.
I will never understand.
How is it that we as the patients have to become the person responsible for connecting those dots? Like
we essentially have to become our own caseworker. And that's because it's true. We have to become our own caseworker because there is no one to represent us. There is no one to tie the pieces together. And outside of what the doctors are already doing, unless it's really serious, the doctors don't really connect with each other. They just don't. They only refer back to notes they might get in their system. So I don't know where in the medical system there's no room for doctors communicating together, but we need to change that because it would fix so many issues, I feel like.
Yeah, the amount of times I've gone back to the doctor, not to say that I can't relay the information, but you got to think about it. I'm already dealing with the trauma mentally from everything that I've gone through the stress of it all, and to have to relay the same things over and over every single time I step into an office can be tiring.
I got to tell you though, I did see a geneticist this year. super excited. Can't wait to get my results back. But anyway,
Nice.
they gave me a counselor. So there was the geneticist doctor, and then there was a geneticist counselor. So the counselor comes in, she opens up her laptop, and she goes, okay, so I hear back in 2015, you were at Dartmouth for, and I was like, whoa, what did you just say?
Oh,
And
snap.
she went through my whole history, everything. And I was like, I started crying. And she goes, are you okay? I didn't mean to trigger you. I was like, no, honey, I am so happy. You are the only person this is the only appointment I've had where someone is thoroughly going through every single piece of my medical history. You have no idea how relieved and seen I feel right now.
Wow.
It was amazing. And like, we sat and talked for like an hour before I even saw the doctor, and that's the way it should be, though. That's how it should be, where you have someone on your side who is looking through your entire history and trying to put the pieces together.
I think 15 minutes for an appointment doesn't have to be that standard. Because I'll be honest, there are times where I go to the doctor's office and I'll probably be sitting there for like 45 minutes just chopping it up and just going through entire medical stuff, different updates on labs, etc. There are real cases out there, real cases where that 15 minutes doesn't suffice and cause some real damage. We have the story of Jessica Santillan that happened in 2003. And the story pretty much goes, she was 17 years old. She needed a heart and double lung transplant due to the series of checklists and communication failures. We're talking about that system where all of her medical records are supposed to cross-reference with each other. There was a complete systemic breakdown. Doctors transplanted organs that were the wrong blood type. And this resonates for me, right? Because I'm in the middle of transplant processing, whatever.
Yeah.
So the malpractice piece was, the failure. It was the failure of the entire system to follow the most basic pre-transplant protocol. It wasn't one doctor's rush, but a failure of multiple checks and communication, and the outcome, unfortunately, was that her body immediately rejected the organs. This caused severe brain damage, so she vegged out. She was given a second transplant 2 weeks later, but it was pretty much too late. And she was declared, brain dead and died. This is scary.
But it happens all the time.
Yeah. When you're moving organs, the importance of finding the correct blood type is super important because the body will see that organ as a foreign object and the immune system will pull out shanks, machetes, guillotines just to attack whatever just came in. This is an example of, that systemic breakdown, not taking the time to make sure we cross all of the T's, dot every single I, and it produced the worst outcome. And I feel like certain institutions, they need to make sure they don't push this oversight too much. They need to take their time, especially when insurance is involved, because like we just said, let's keep it a stack. Insurance companies, sometimes they don't do the best at making sure all the T's are crossed as well. And doctors might miss the mark. They're human too. But then I think there should be a better ironed out system to make sure the patient's outcome is at forefront,
Definitely. I mean, I really think that automatically any patient that has a complex medical history or overlapping symptoms should have some kind of medical caseworker. I that should just be automatic. I don't know why this doesn't exist.
Yeah, but there's so many different minds on hand. You would think one would kind of come in and interject and be like, did we check this out? Just to make sure. And it's unfortunate. I mean, this happened, about 22 years ago. But still though, I think that was a tragedy that definitely could have been avoided, but because of a simple mishap. The blood type, that's step one. When you go to the doctor's office, they draw your blood, they check that. So how was that I can't even fathom that. Big condolences to the family. Again, a tragedy that could have been definitely avoided.
Hey guys, this is JJ Myers. You can find me on social medias at Pretty Rude JJ. I am an artist, I'm a chronically ill baddie, and a fierce advocate for other spoonies who are struggling to find their way in the medical field.
We go now to segment 2, when doctors get stuck. And this segment is going to be about why, the actual medical mistakes happen, focusing on the mental block. And again, we were talking about that earlier, actually. What's the best way that you found to politely but firmly snap a doctor out of their stuck mindset?
I really struggle with this because I don't think you can. I really feel like at that point, you just need to move on. If they're not willing to hear you from the get and they're just stuck on their thing and more worried about being correct, they're not worried about you. And that is not somebody you want to fight with. Why would you want someone on your team if they're not fully backing you up when you can go and find someone else? There's no reason
That
to
is
put up
true.
with it.
That is true. I think a lot of times folks just kind of they back down.
You don't have to. There's
you
so
know,
many other doctors out there. You don't have to.
yeah, and it definitely goes along the same vein of advocating for yourself. Some serious dialogue needs to happen with doctors and patients because we should be more empowered to learn about what we're going through, not just to, again, blindly falling onto the doctor. And I'll be honest myself, I don't think I've reached a point to where I've had to unstuck a doctor from their mindset on my condition. Not because that everything's been smooth sailing. Trust me, there have been times where I've had some conversations with my doctor. Like you said, if it comes to the point where I feel like I'm just not being heard, and that wasn't the situation at that time. I was being heard, but I think there was more truth that I needed to find out. But if any case, walk away. There's options. You can always go to the next doctor who will listen. Get a second opinion.
I just watched a documentary about it's called like white savior complex or something like that. It's about these people who go to Ethiopia or whatever to help the people there and whatever. So it was about this very specific woman who had no medical training, but she was trying to do all these crazy things on kids over there and ended up like killing them, because she didn't know what she was doing. But she was allowed to get away with it because the people around her didn't know better. They don't have education. They don't have access to resources. They don't have other doctors. So she was a god to them, and she had full power because they kept themselves in the dark. They didn't have a choice. They were oblivious. So if we keep ourselves oblivious, we're doing ourselves injustice and we're enabling them, because if they can trick us once, well, they can trick us twice.
Oh, yeah. Even when you suspect something is seriously wrong. So how do you walk that tightrope of being that good patient and then feeling like you have to be the squeaky wheel to demand more tests from them?
I don't walk that rope. That rope is non-existent to me. I don't know. I don't care. At the end of the day, they're there. They're getting their paycheck. Do your job. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I say this to anybody. I mean, this could be applying to the guy at Dunkin' Donuts pouring my coffee. You're paid to be here. Do your job. You're my doctor. You're paid to be here. Do your job. So for me, I don't understand that, because at the end of the day, if you have a car and you keep going to a mechanic and every time you go to the mechanic, the car gets worse, are you going to keep going to that freaking mechanic or not?
Very good. This is my car. I need it fixed. And you're not doing a good job. Every time I come here to change your oil, next thing you know, my tires are flat. And I change my tire, next thing you know, my muffler's blown. Like, what are you doing?
I'm not coming here anymore. Yes. You may not service my car. Your body is your temple, y'all. Yeah. You need to have somebody who's willing to listen to you and take care of you.
Let's go. Yes.
My goodness.
All right. Let's simmer down. But yeah, you know what? You know what's crazy? Even me being as outspoken as I am, this whole appreciation for the medical field is very new to me. So now that I've seen a better side, I would say, now that I've seen a better side of it, I'm appreciating, and I've yet to really run into where like I had to brass knuckle with a specialist or just a doctor in general. So I will I get there? Yeah, maybe if my life is on the line, for sure.
I've reached the point where I just walk out of appointments now. I did that just this past month. I went to a new rheumatologist. He blatantly told me he couldn't do the things I was asking him to do. And I was like, well, I don't know why I'm here. And then he proceeded to try to treat me for the things he just said he doesn't specialize in. So I was like, what are you doing? And he started trying to tell me this old school textbook baloney that I knew wasn't true. So I was like, we're done. This visit is over. Where's the exit? And I left.
Wow.
So you do not have to be polite and tolerate it. And you know what? They called me and they voided my copay because they knew I was unhappy. So it kind of worked out.
Again, you do not have to go to a doctor's out that you feel like is giving you the lesser of what you think you deserve.
No, and at that point, there was a conversation rolling through my head. Like, I could totally educate this guy and tell him the things that I know but there's no point. He's literally like 75 years old right now. He is stuck in his way. He believes what he believes, and there's nothing you can say that's going to make him see it a different way. So it is time to just walk out. Be done. And I did.
Absolutely. So again, advocacy. I think that's what's at the heart of all of this is just advocacy for yourself and being your true lawyer to this. Because
no one else is going to, unfortunately.
No one. Not what your caregiver, your spouse, they can only do something, but then you have to do this for you. You know what I mean?
You know your illness best. You are the one living with it every single day. Don't let anyone else try to make you believe you are not the expert of your disease.
Yeah. And we got to have a case to back all of this up. This case is the Alan Navarro stroke misdiagnosis that happened in 2000. And what's crazy is this story comes out of Tampa, Florida. No relationships with Tampa General Hospital, but this facility is apparently, from what I read, is no longer in existence and it's been closed down and everything. So here's the story. So we have Alan Navarro. He was an ex-professional basketball player. He went to the emergency room in Tampa, Florida, with symptoms of a stroke. He had the dizziness, the nausea, the headaches, and he was, crucially, he told the nurses and staff he had a family history of strokes. All right, step one, we're checking all vitals. We're checking his blood pressure. We're checking all that stuff from what I can imagine, right? And here's where the malpractice happened. The doctors completely misdiagnosed his condition as a simple sinusitis. If he has that family history of it, you might want to listen. And that's where the listen to me comes into play.
And the curiosity of putting the pieces together.
Oh my gosh. So they diagnosed him with sinusitis and sent him home with some painkillers. He returned the next day needing a brain surgery to relieve the swelling that he was having. And he suffered a massive stroke while there. So this is a classic case of anchor bias. Is when a doctor is fixed on a simple diagnosis and ignores the dangers and all the danger signs. The outcome, unfortunately, Navarro was left permanently brain damaged, confined to a wheelchair, and with limited cognitive abilities. So think about it. This guy was a basketball player. As far as like cognitive, he didn't have that anymore. He was confined to a wheelchair. Using mobility tools to get around. Now this guy went from being functional to now just permanently damaged because of a misdiagnosis. Like, if I write it down that I have, family history of stroke, and you write it off as a sinusitis, I'm going to be super frustrated because I'm going to go through some serious stuff.
Yeah.
So a Florida jury awarded him with a massive, he got paid. He got $216.7 million as a verdict. But what's crazy though? Even if I do get awarded that much
doesn't
money,
bring back your life.
I'm gonna, I feel like in a sense, I'm definitely gonna need the money now because I can imagine his physical therapy bills.
Oh, sure.
The hospital bills. I'm pretty sure the hospital's gonna make back that money because he's gonna probably be spending it to, or the healthcare system rather is gonna make it back. He's gonna use it. He's gonna have to use all of that. And what benefit would the money be if I can't really enjoy it in a way that I used to?
Right.
And it's something that we go through too, like that burying ourselves, burying who we used to be. He can't go back to playing basketball. Right. He can't go back to just, going for a jog or hiking or doing his thing. He can't go back to that. So all because of a misdiagnosis, you set this guy up for a lifetime of just, radical accepting his new condition, which he probably didn't want to be in. This powerfully shows the consequence of a doctor's cognitive failure, like just not listening to the patient, and this is why patient advocacy is so important because it's a matter of life and death. I would be traumatized. Like even for me now, I'm traumatized, although I can still do a lot of the things that I probably could do. I know that's not the case for a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Me included. I can't do half the things I used to do, and it is traumatizing. And I know now, given that I have my POTS diagnosis, I know that a lot of the things I've been experiencing for years, since I was like a kid, this has been POTS related and it's been missed by everybody. And I'm at this disabled state because I was unaware and because no one pointed it out. No one knew. And because they kept saying, well, it's just fibro, or no, you're just dehydrated, or whatever
Oh,
the case
gosh.
may be. Now I can't. I used to be an avid gym goer. I was a preschool teacher running around with kids. And
Yeah. You're gonna need
now
that
I
energy, bro.
can barely take a shower.
Mm,
I have to use a shower chair, and
yeah.
like some days I have to use a wheelchair, and that is not me. That's not who I was. I used to be a very active on the go person, and now I don't do much of anything. And it messes with you emotionally, mentally, just getting used to that new lifestyle. And when you think back to all those times you've been to the ER, you went to the doctor with concerns and they blew you off, it just makes you so angry because you're like, I knew something was wrong and no one listened.
I wish somebody told me that the kidneys is the main character of the body. The kidneys go, everything else goes. Okay,
It's the filtration system.
but and it also does, like, it controls your blood pressure. It controls your hormones. It tells the body when to send blood. It does so many other crazy things that I didn't know. I thought it was all the heart and the brain and all the other stuff, but the kidneys are most neglected. I've probably been through a whole bunch of docs that were just pushing blood pressure meds on me, pushing more blood pressure meds on me, and they were not working. And the next step would be to check your kidney. Tell me why 4 of those doctors never wanted to go and refer me to a nephrologist. They didn't even try to do that. They knew I had a mass on my right kidney, didn't know it, but nobody ever wanted to get me to the MRI.
I can tell you why. Probably because for insurance reasons and diagnostic reasons, you did not quite meet criteria for them to be able to push it. It's more of, okay, diagnostically, is there enough evidence here to say that he absolutely needs this? So, which is a shame because this is how many things get missed, because there are a lot of processes that doctors have to take. This is why people who are chronically ill with multiple illnesses, it takes so long for them to get a proper diagnosis, because there are steps doctors have to take. It's like when you're getting ready for college and there's some preliminary courses you have to take beforehand. It's the same kind of thing. You need to do some preliminary testing and treatment first before they'll even try something else. So that's why they need to do other things first, and then they'll move on to that step.
I wonder if it was just, hey, let's max them out on blood pressure meds just so we can say, hey, we've tried all of this and it's not working.
Yeah, but no, for real though, they really do have to do that. That was what was happening to me when I was they were trying to treat my case as migraine condition. And so they were throwing all sorts of migraine medications at me. And quite literally, they're like, yeah, we have to go through the entire list of medications before we can even think about other testing for you. Like, we have to try every single one to make sure they're not going to work. Had to.
When you couple that with bad bedside manner, I didn't feel connected. I didn't feel like my best interest was on their mind as far as the patient goes. It was a lot of that, 10 to 15 minute, appointments, and I'll just walk right out. Like, I would spend 3 months of going through symptoms just to come into your office for 10, 15 minutes and walk out with, another prescription. Nothing. It was, I think at that point I was just getting frustrated, and decided to just, do my own thing. And unfortunately, here we are. Alan Navarro, another case that came out of Florida. If you want to actually look up, these cases, I'll actually put links on the description bio so where you can look into these cases to see what happened as far as settlement and stuff like that. We zero into this last segment. Are you a fan of Michael Jackson?
I do like Michael Jackson.
Who's not a fan of Michael Jackson? I'm a fan of Michael Jackson when he was singing like holiday songs. Forget that new stuff, right? But,
you're like, I want some Jackson 5.
He was like, doing a robot and like that Jackson. But anywho, in 2009, we witnessed the most tragic celebrity death. I remember where I was, and then the news broke out that Michael Jackson had passed. It was almost as if like the clouds stopped moving. And we knew he was getting ready for that last tour, and all that stuff. But when he passed, it was devastating. Sometimes I wonder how much of us as social media, chronic illness advocates, I wonder how much of an impact that'll have on people. it takes a lot of courage to do what we're doing.
Facts,
You know,
though.
and in the, I'm pretty sure you get inboxes, you get messages, comments
All
about,
the time.
you know what I mean? I want people to understand that when it comes to like your health, when it comes to taking care of yourself, that a lot of times we do content to encourage us on days where we don't feel it, you know?
Amen.
So this segment here is the moment of just true, straight up, unorthodox negligence. Like straight up clear mistakes, you know, the ones that are just unforgivable at all. Where the doctor clearly messed up, you know, like, you know, whether they're a jerk or whether they're kind. How much of that affects whether you as a patient decide to actually go for a lawsuit or when something goes wrong?
It's the doctors are so protected too. That's another problem. So it's like, I mean, they are insanely protected. So to get any kind of malpractice suit going is very difficult. But you can always file a formal complaint to your state medical board, which I have done for my primary care doctor that neglected me. She knew I had a previous diagnosis of fibromyalgia. It was questionable if it was Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I came in, collapsed on her table, and she refused to refer me to anybody because, quote unquote, my blood work looked fine. And, you know, she said there was no way I had POTS. Well, lo and behold, guess what? I have POTS. So, you know, I don't know. Can I sue her for that? Probably not. But I did, you know, write a formal complaint so that at least maybe she'll get flagged or something. I don't know. But the best thing you can do is share stories, and share stories in the sense of like what we're doing right now so that people understand, like, yeah, you can speak up for yourself. But I also talk about everything I talk about as passionately as I do, because anyone who is newly going into the medical field, I want you to hear our message so that we have new faces, fresh minds going in so that we can make a change.
A lot of people know where I'm from, the infamous 305 Miami area. I say this gingerly when I say I know that there are really good doctors in Miami. However, I can boldly say this. If I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease while still living in Miami, I probably wouldn't be here now. Simply because I feel like two things matter. Money talks, insurance talks. Now, not to smear Miami all the way again. I know that there are certain hospitals that are just no-go zones because if you go there, you're not coming out. That's scary. I don't think any facility should carry that reputation. Number two, I remember my dad telling me a story where he brought my mom to the hospital for some checkup or whatever. And at discharge, my dad went to pick up my mom. My mom still had the needle in her arm.
Oh my God.
Had to bring her back and ask questions. And the nurse who was watching or kind of discharging her said, "Oh my gosh, I would have lost my job. Thank you so much. You know, what can I do?" And my dad's like, don't do that again. Right. It is what it is, you know.
Yes.
But trust me, this is why I boldly say, if I wouldn't get if I caught CKD in Miami, I would not be alive, and I can stand on that because of what I've seen happen throughout my childhood.
And I understand. I'm from New Hampshire, and my medical team is in New Jersey because no one here in New Hampshire has helped me or cared enough to help me, and it's not. I think the problem here in New Hampshire is more of it's very rural and we don't have access to a lot of new education and research, but also this is a tough country kind of place. Like you have a cold, like buck up and get over it. You have a migraine, get over it. You're going to work. There's 5 feet of snow, whatever. You're still coming to work. Like this is a tough place where like you just get over it. So there is no empathy or compassion around sickness, to be honest. There really isn't. It's just you buck up and tough it out.
Right.
So there's that mindset also that plays into it. Plus, New Hampshire is a tax-free state, which means there are no tax monies to go around for resources. So there's just nothing here. So I knew once I hit that wall with my primary care, I was like, oh no, we have to leave the state. Like I can't get care here. I know it's going to be a dead end for me. And it's true. But another big part of why it's a dead end is because there's like no rheumatologist, there's no neurologist. So the things that would easily get me into those specialists in New Jersey won't even stand a chance here in New Hampshire because I don't meet criteria.
Really?
Correct.
Oh my gosh, that's scary. You would think to bear the name of healthcare provider, you would uphold that standard of being a healthcare provider.
And I
Um,
know this personally because I have a friend, she's a pediatric nurse and right here in my town, and she experiences this all the time where she's like, well, I'd refer you, but like I can't because you are not critical enough and they're not going to see you for like a year or two because there's literally no one to see.
so you
Yeah,
have to
it's frightening.
go across state to get the
And
supports
I
that you need.
know, especially where I live, there are so many people who are on welfare, so many people
Mhm.
who don't have vehicles, so many people who don't have family or any kind of money, resources to go elsewhere. So they're stuck with the care that's here. They don't have a
Ah.
choice.
But I think I think there should be something that rises up in a person that even though it's convenient, it's not good for me. So I have to make a move regardless, just to preserve me. I wish that was more the case. But when you're stuck with the situations where funds are not there, the vehicle is not there, I can't get around like that. There's no supports to get around to go to see somewhere else. I think it's just a matter of survival at that point, and that's what's truly unfortunate. I wish state legislation would do more in regards to that. To make sure that the folks who are living in a town, city, or whatever the case may be, have those essential health safety things in place so that they don't have to, I would say, suffer, not having proper medical care. And that's truly unfortunate, man. Going back to Mr. Moonwalker himself, and
He had
um,
such a hard life too. Like
yeah,
his childhood was awful. It's just
yeah,
it's so sad.
him, have you seen My Childhood, that song? Have you seen? I'm not going to sing here, but he was open, and I think that's what made him most impactful. The fact that he was real and open about what he went through, even his condition of vitiligo. I think that was the only known medical condition that he really had. I know he got burnt, doing a Pepsi commercial, with the Jerry curl sauce, and all that stuff. But that's neither here or there. Michael Jackson, Mr. Moonwalker, he left us in 2009. Now, the case is with the Dr. Conrad Murray. I know if I say that name, that might strike some anger in a lot of Michael Jackson fans out there. But if you don't know the story, here's how it goes. Michael Jackson, our favorite, spinner, he died after receiving a fatal dose of the powerful surgical anesthesia. His personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, had been routinely administering this drug. Now, here's the malpractice piece. Dr. Murray, committed numerous clear breaches of the standard of care, including administering a dangerous drug outside of a medical facility, failing to monitor the patient, and failing to resuscitate properly. He exhibited a profound failure of professional duty. Okay.
So I just looked up what this drug is, and it's basically an anesthetic. It is a fast-acting liquid anesthetic. So he was just like literally putting him to sleep every night.
And he was supposed to use it at a medical setting where they have all the bells and whistles to monitor blood
Monitor
pressure.
you. Yeah.
And he probably just got so routine with it that he said, "Well, I could just do it at home. You have the same. You have no effects to it. And so he just gave it to him, not realizing that it could have caused some serious impact. Gosh, that stuff you can't get that at Walgreens. So why would? Okay, so I mean, and unfortunately, we do know the outcome. It was wrongful death. Dr. Murray was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and had his medical license revoked. Thank goodness. He was directly illustrating the legal consequences for a doctor who fundamentally failed to provide care. I mean, just having a medical license revoked, I mean, that's a plus because we know that doctors like these should not be around, especially if they're not following strict protocol. Mm-hmm. But then what happens with the family though? You know what I mean? Like I saw that live stream of the funeral. It was not the happiest thing. And I mean, no funeral is happy, but we saw the passing of a true icon. I think he made a lot of impact in the lives of so many.
Well, it's just the tragic part of it wasn't quote unquote his time. You know what I mean? You expect to see these people getting old. You expect to see them live out their lives. And when it's ripped from them unexpectedly, like that's tragic all around.
Yeah. I can still see Michael Jackson at 67, still, maybe tearing up, a dance floor.
100%.
When certain people pass, things are just not the same anymore.
No, I get it. I felt that way with Robin Williams. That one hit me hard. Yeah, that one hit me hard.
Mental health.
Oh, I know.
This right here, the whole Conrad Murray and Michael Jackson case, this is an ultimate example of a bad doctor putting personal gain or convenience over the patient's well-being. It's a high-profile case, but at the same time, how many non-high profile case happens day to day that we never hear about?
All the time.
And like you said, they can be well protected. You know why? Because a lot of times we can sign waivers at the hospital, and that's it. You gave them a bulletproof vest, and that's all it is. We are not on here just ripping a new one on every doctor. But I think there's some doctors out there that need to reevaluate why they're there in the medical system.
Oh, 100%. Or get back to your roots and remember why you were there in the first place. And to piggyback what you just said, like, I do want to give a moment here to commend the good doctors and the good nurses out there, because I know you exist. I know you care. And I know there's a system that is fighting against you and making it difficult for you to do your job the way you want to. So I see you and I appreciate you. This does not apply to you.
Yeah.
And those nurses and doctors know who they are because they're listening to our stories and they're appalled.
I think the best doctors are the ones that have been impacted by some kind of malpractice or some kind of trauma as far as the medical field, whether it's their parents or with them. I have a couple of doctors, who've shared that, it was their dad or it was their mom that inspired them to get into the medical field because, either care wasn't provided or their parents inspired them to be an advocate and help them pursue the medical field. So I think those make the best doctors. If you go into the field thinking like, well, I want to be a doctor because I want to make the millions, like, I think you're in it for the wrong reason.
Amen.
It's about changing lives. So, and in regards to this episode, we've shared so many things when it comes to like medical malpractice. I think the biggest key takeaway is if you're a patient who has a chronic illness or just going through anything medical wise, I think it's very important for you to be an advocate for you, especially when it comes to doctors who might not take your condition to heart when you go home and face those conditions every single day.
Yep.
So with that, JJ, I want to thank you so much for being on here with me again.
This is fantastic.
We got a lot off our chests. I think we kept it pretty tamed.
I think I only said a curse word once, and it was really quiet. I was like, "Ooh."
It's all good. I think you guys don't understand. This podcast should not have existed. This episode should not have existed at all.
Honestly, I kind of want this episode to become a Me Too movement. I want this to be one of those things where it's like people are really waking up and being like, yeah, my doctor failed me and it's time for me to do something about it. That's what I want to happen from this. I want people to really feel empowered that they are in control of their health care. It might take a lot of work, but damn it, it's worth it.
Yeah, well, you heard it from the chronic illness baddie herself. If you,
That's right. That's me.
if you have any experiences, if you have anything like, please share it with us. Comment, share it around. Send it to your doctor friends. Have them have a listen to it, because I think this message needs to get out there, and I think we want to get the attention of the healthcare system because a change has to happen. Again, JJ, I appreciate you so much for being on here with me. I know you got a lot going on with you. Is there any last thoughts you want to leave for the people before we peace out of here?
You only have one life, boo-boo. Do what you can to take care of yourself.
That's right, boo-boo.
That's all I got. Thank you so much for having me, friend.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, check us out on our different platforms. I'm at Mr. Cool Beats 2889. She's at Pretty Rude JJ on Instagram and on TikTok as well. Connect with us, get to know us. We'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out, peeps. We love y'all.